Welcome to the Show Up Dad. This podcast is created for hardworking fathers. At the Show Up Dad, we recognize that fathers providing for their children is certainly important. But women truly understand their unique role and gain the knowledge and skills to be great fathers, they can transform and impact future generations. Today's guest is Nathan Kirby. He is 47 years old, a professional athlete, coach, and keynote speaker who has been on countless shows. He's been married for 26 years and a father to two boys, Colton, who is 24 and a Navy officer in flight school, and Ashton, 21, who is ranked the #1 lightweight in the U.S. Welcome to our show, brother.
Woohoo! Man, that sounds amazing.
Well, brother, as always, I want you to just tell our listeners about your experience growing up and, just kind of elaborate on that, bro, if you don't mind.
We're going to just jump right in there head first, huh?
Yes, sir. Let's get after it.
Let's go on all the pain. Get your Kleenexes ready. Get you. Man, first of all, thanks for having me on here. It's amazing, especially to be recognized as a father. I get recognized as a coach or as a fighter or, like you said, being on Steve Harvey. We got recognized in Mexico because we were on the show while my son and I were training on the beach, getting ready for a fight. And I told my wife, one day I just want to be recognized for me, not because, hey, is that Brock Lesnar? Hey, is that who's the linebacker? I'm trying to think of
Urlacher.
The other Gronkowski.
Okay.
Everybody says that. Somebody's going to say, hey, is that Kirby? So thanks for recognizing me just for me being a dad and a husband, and which is probably the most important job title I've ever had. Mm-hmm. But becoming a father and being a dad, completely different things. And that's what I had to deal with growing up. That was my biggest lessons. Mm-hmm. I am still sort of dealing with that in different realms of my life, my business, as I'm still looking for that mentor. I'm still looking for that leader and that coach. I'm always drawn to that person, not as a father figure per se, but somebody just to guide me. And before, I went on my, big personal development search, that was 10 years old, I believe, when I found out that this man named David Kirby wasn't my dad. Mm-hmm. Blown away, and my mind is baffled. What do you mean he's not our dad? I have an older brother. He's my only sibling that I have, has the same mother and the same father. My older brother found out that there's a man named Brian Lewis that's our father. And he said, no, the kids down the street told me that they go to church with my dad. I'm like, we don't go to church. I don't know what you're talking about. And he found a birth certificate. And the moment that I found out, as I dive into my mindset to try and think about this, the moment that I found out that this man wasn't my dad, the pure anger, bitterness, the rage, the hatred, everything swelled up because of what we had to endure. And we just thought, well, this was our dad. We don't know any different. I thought you just get in trouble. I thought you got yelled at. I thought you were just scared to death, afraid to come home because he's looking in the rearview mirror. You're going to get beat when you get home. You know it because I stepped on the fence at my uncle's house in Illinois and we weren't supposed to. Crazy stuff like that. And immediately realizing that this man is not even my father, and then understanding why my brother and I are being abused. He's not our father. It was my half-sister's real father. Mm-hmm. He was an alcoholic. All I've known him was to be an alcoholic, but I didn't know what an alcoholic was. Growing up, I just knew my dad was an alcoholic. He was a drinker and he would get drunk. I used to go out with a friend of mine and we'd go around the city of Burlington, Iowa, and we call it can scabbing. And we would go and grab beer cans, pop cans, and you name it for the nickel. We would get the nickel out of it and we'd turn those cans in and I get money and I go and buy Garbage Pail Kids stickers. And I would go, those. Yeah, and I still have a collection of them. And we would go to ball fields and we'd dive in the trash cans. And I remember we had a pantry and I had a flat of empty cans. And one of them was a Coors Light can. And he came out screaming at me, what is this? What is this? It's an empty can. This man is an alcoholic drunk and I have an empty beer can and I got beat because I had an empty beer can in the closet. It was those little tiny things. And I'm very fortunate that a lot of the memories that I had are gone. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I have talked about this from trauma in her past. We've prayed for that. because I don't want to hang on to those. I don't want to know what that pain feels like. Majority of the time, it's not the physical pain that has always followed me. It's always been the emotional turmoil, the psychological pain that has been caused to me. That's what lasts longer than any of the physical pain has ever had. But I remember sitting at the dinner table, and at the time, there was a range. You know, it was like a microwave was built into the stove, if I remember right, and it had a little clock with a spin dial on it. And that's how you set the timer. We had a timer set on us. And if we didn't eat in a certain amount of time, that was it, man. We were getting beat. And I remember my mom reached over and was about to go off, and she just kind of switched the dial to give us a few more minutes. I remember he grabbed her hand, and man, I was so afraid of her. He never hit my mom, but he was abusive to me and my brother. Beat us in bathtubs and threw my brother through a fan. I mean, just unbelievable. And I think the pain of that growing up was knowing not only was this man doing this to us, he wasn't our father. And then I had so much anger. I'm battling with all this understanding. Why are we here? Why are we with this man? I remember moving to Colorado, and I don't know why we moved to Colorado, finding out later there was a man that came back that they used to be neighbors with back into my mom and his life. Mm-hmm. And my stepfather was moving away from this guy. We moved back to Burlington, and the abuse is still going on. Next thing you know, 1 o'clock in the morning, my mom pulls us out of our bed. Let's go. We got to go. At the time he was working overnight shift. I remember crazy things like walking down the side of a road in Burlington, and he's walking down the side of the road. We're in a car. They're fighting. It is just a bizarre childhood. Yeah. But I remember waking up saying, pack your stuff, let's go. We're out of here. I can't tell you the time. Fourth grade, fifth grade. I was in fifth grade. Mm-hmm. And we left. And that night, I remember going down this long driveway, and we get to this house out in the middle of the country, and go in, and the house is nasty. It's disgusting. And there's people in there. I have no idea who any of these people are. And this is where we lived. In the middle of the night, we just uprooted ourselves. And what happened was my mom didn't have enough confidence in herself, what I know now as a man, mm-hmm. enough confidence in herself, or enough love for us to leave him and stand on her own 2 feet. So she had to wait till another man came in her life. And so here we are. Now we're living with another guy. Mm-hmm. And we lived out there for probably 6 months or so, moved into another town. I'm in 6th grade. This man's living with us. And now the psychological battle is going on. I had more problems growing up with this psychological abuse, bullying that I felt growing up with him than I ever did with the physical abuse of my second father. Mm-hmm. So now at 14 years old, they get married. And I still have yet to meet my biological father. So a couple of things that happen in between this is I have cousins. I just know them as my cousins. Yeah. I have a grandma and grandpa that came over, and I just only know them as a grandma and grandpa. As a kid in 6th and 7th grade, I don't know how the correlation between whose mom is this mom, and I don't know that they happen to be my biological family. Mm-hmm. That still tried to stay in our life, whether my mom wanted it or not. And so finally, 15, 16 years old, my brother became a superstar athlete. Mm-hmm. Dude's on the front page of newspapers, right? And he's dunking it. He's the quarterback, knocking out linebackers. I mean, this guy is a physical specimen. And he got held back, so he was always a year older than everybody else. And I was not big or a physical specimen. I was in plays and musicals. Thank you. I had a role in Grease and Cheaper by the Dozen. I was in choir and swing choir, and that's what I was. I was a singer and an actor. But because of my brother, I'm equating it to this because this is what I've had to deal with, is realize that I finally met my biological father, my real dad. I finally got to meet him. I was 15 or 16, And it was, my brother was playing basketball. And so I'm in the stands, and here this man walks in. And I got to tell you, I try and explain this to families. You know, in my academy, I've got students in here that they're split family homes as well, different moms, different dads, raised by a grandparent. I try and explain how important it is for a child to understand their identity.
Yes.
To know who their mom and dad is. Knowing God and giving that child Christ in their life is something that we didn't have. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure we give that to our kids and give it to my students. My whole life changed when I laid eyes on my father. Mm. My stepdad had a lazy eye. My second dad, skinny, curly hair, you know, of course, an alcoholic. So he looked frail and yellow. And my third dad, he was short, bald, beer belly. It was completely different. I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
And this guy don't even break the 6 foot mark. And then I saw my dad, 6'3", 6'4", dark hair. I get the blonde from my mom, dark hair, handsome. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh my, he's a handsome man. He was, and he's a firefighter. Mm-hmm. You know, my God, that's my father. That's my dad. And unfortunately, I never got to build a relationship with him. My brother did. And it was just not about me. And I call it playing second fiddle once again. I was just nobody. My brother went to a college football game with him where I played lookout, you know, because we were trying to secretly build a relationship with him.
Yeah.
I just never got to have that relationship with him. It was never about me. I don't know if he's ever come to see me do anything. Mm-hmm. So my senior year, you know, I'm playing football. I'm still singing. I'm still playing musicals and doing all that stuff. And mm-hmm. I'm very much struggling right now in my own identity. My third dad left and he came back and he was cheating on my mom, kicked him out. But of course, she can't stand on her own 2 feet. So let him crawl back into the house again. And we're poor, we're broke. You know, he's going job to job. My mom's working at a warehouse. And I'm just hanging around with the wrong dude. And I ended up breaking into my high school my senior year to steal stuff so I can pawn it off in another town so I have gas and insurance money. Mm-hmm. You know, I bought my car. I bought the transmission. I put it in by myself. I never had a dad to change an oil with. I never had a dad training with me. My senior year, my third dad decided he's going to become a football referee. So he's not at my games. He's at everybody else's games refereeing their games. It was never about me. And that plagued me for so many years of my life. You know, and I say this thinking, who's got to hear this? What father needs to hear this right now? Or what kid needs to hear this? Because I know he's going through the same thing. But, you know, hope comes in the morning, brings everything. So I still had to endure this. So I get in trouble. I'm about to graduate with nothing. I'm not going to college. My mom and dad, stepdad at the time, they wouldn't talk about college. They wouldn't talk about financial aid. I had zero path. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about life. I had no preparation. I was 17 when I graduated. And I got in trouble for that. And I ended up getting a probation, 5-year suspended prison sentence and a probation for breaking into this school. I tried to serve in my country. I tried to serve in the military. I signed papers to go. And a district attorney in Mount Pleasant, Iowa would not let me go. He made me stay there. And I literally was a hood rat for the next 2 years. Mm. So at any point, stop me if I'm dragging this on and dragging this out. But I'm saying all this because of not having God in my life, not having a man, a role model in my life, having unbelievable instability, never showing any agape love, no unconditional love. I was never, my mom said thought I was gay. It was just this psychological warfare with my stepfather and what he did in my family with my brother's girlfriend, with my mom's sister, with my own sister. I'm telling you, there's some things that completely effed me up in the head. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard to battle this. So I graduate and I move out of the house immediately. I steal some cigarettes from Walmart, start smoking cigarettes, because all I've known my whole life is both my parents smoke 2 and 3 packs of cigarettes a day. This is all I've ever known. Mm-hmm. I'm now in a whole other town, running around, just causing a ruckus. And I really am, because I have no structure. I had none of that.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting in a fight. I got in multiple fights. But this fight led me to get thrown in jail. It was, I just met my wife that I'm married to. I just met her, so I'm kind of showing off. We're kind of dating. And I get into a fight, get arrested, and get thrown in jail. I fought 3 guys one night at a gas station. And I had to serve jail time, or I would have lost my suspended prison sentence and my probation and stuff.
Yeah.
So I literally had to serve 2 weeks in jail, so I wouldn't go to jail for 5 years. But there was a time in between before I met her and while I was moved out of the house, no direction.
Yeah.
Drinking. I didn't get into a lot of drugs. There were some drugs, alcohol. It was never an alcoholic. It was never that. But I was angry. Man, I used to fight all the time. And I don't care who you are. Look at me wrong. I left a man for dead on the side of the road. I mean, just left him there in a ball. He had to go to the hospital. I didn't have, it's just pure anger inside of me. I got into a fight with a woman that I was living with in her basement. She kicked me out. I'm literally homeless. Mm-hmm. I lived in the back of a pickup truck. I lived on the couch of a front porch of my friend's house, slept on cockroaches. Mm-hmm. I broke into a house on the 4 lanes while people were sleeping, snooping through their dresser, stealing money at the foot of their bed. I mean, I was lawless. I was, it's bizarre to even hear that come from me.
Yeah.
A whole life ago. But I'm telling you, when I met my wife, things changed in my life. She believed in me for who I could be, not who I was. Mm-hmm. She knew the potential that I had, and she just leaned into that and loved that about me. And we weren't even together 6 months. I proposed to her on Valentine's Day, 1996. And the next day I went to jail to serve my time.
Wow.
I still have a letter from her that she wrote me while I was in jail.
Uh-huh.
And I get out of jail for those 2 weeks. I moved into a farmhouse. This old man let me be a farmhand. That was the only way I could have work release, get out of jail and go to work. By May of that year, we were married. We were married at 20 years old.
Hey, Kirby, how did becoming a farmhand and learning that hard work, how did that affect you? How did that transpire for you to start becoming, the man who your wife wanted and needed? How did that relate?
It was brutal. I hated it. I loved working with cattle. I worked with Angus. Mm-hmm. We bred bulls. I worked on this farm and mow and rake hay. And it wasn't the hard work. It was the old man that I worked for. He was 70 some years old at the time, and he's set in his ways. We're going to work sun up to sundown. Mm-hmm. I was just efficient with my work, and I could get stuff done. And I loved the work that I did. I hated the isolation, and it was brutal. I've never had a place before except an apartment building with a woman, right? This old lady, right. She just passed away 2 weeks ago. I just went to her funeral in Iowa. She was 97 years old when she passed, but here she is in her mid 60s, 70s. I'm living literally upstairs next to her, and then I move in the basement. I really never had independence. Mm-hmm. Now we're living on a farmhouse, and we're talking bills. We have a tank. We have a tank to heat our house. Do you know how expensive that is? When you are flat broke, our house was froze over. It was frozen because we couldn't afford to fill that up. With gas, with propane, or with natural gas. It was awful. The house was awful. There were snakes in the basement. We didn't have a bathroom upstairs. The basement bathroom, literally the toilet sat on this wood thing because in case it flooded, we called it the throne. The shower was this metal bar with a shower curtain and a hose coming off of it. That was our first year of marriage.
Wow.
I came home to hot dogs, 19 versions of hot dogs. And I told my wife, don't ever cook me a hot dog ever again. It was awful, but we had to lean on each other through that time.
Yeah.
We still weren't Christians then. We really still did struggle. I've never lived with anybody before. She's never lived with anybody. This is our first real relationship. We're married, we're young, very naive and very immature. And I still have so much baggage that I'm carrying from my childhood and from 3 dads and from relationships and being broken and hurt, not knowing who I am, not knowing whose I am. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
We move into Washington, Iowa. This is a little town in Iowa. And man, it got really worse because now I'm around people again. And now I want to hang out with my friends. And she's trying to build a nest. Yeah. And I'm finally alive. I'm living. I'm wanting to go out and hang out with my friends. And I'm wanting to do things. And I don't know what I want to do. I hate every job I had. It was awful. Working security, working warehouses. And we have this 2-bedroom home. And I ended up realizing that I wanted to do more and be more. And I think it was around the time I was 25, I decided to go to EMT school to become a EMT. Yeah. Because I started to build this relationship with my biological father by now. Mm-hmm. He was a firefighter. So I was going to go down to Burlington Fire Department, become a firefighter and a paramedic. So I went to EMT school at the University of Iowa. That was the first thing I ever did independently on my own. Mm-hmm. As I was yearning to just have this tribe, to have this family that I never had growing up, to be accepted and to be loved. I remember taking my wife before we got married, taking her to my family for the very first time. And they said, introduce her to everybody. I couldn't. I didn't know them. I couldn't even introduce my wife to my family because this is my Uncle David, but I don't know how he's my uncle. I don't know if he's older than my brother, but this is his wife. I don't know your name. I'm sorry. This is literally my introduction to my family. Wow. But they're the most important people in my life right now. Mm-hmm. I can't even tell you how much healing has happened in my family. But again, it was my wife and I finally realizing that we needed something in our life. Yeah. So I kind of back up a little bit. While I'm running around on the streets before I met my wife, I had a friend named Heather. Uh-huh. And man, we did some crazy stuff together. And her mom was even crazier. And this girl's mom had done a lot of drugs and she was just kind of out there. Yeah. Next thing I know, she's about to get married. She got married to a man who was a Christian. Yeah. She had gotten saved since then. Mm-hmm. And we were asked to come to her baptism at a church. And so I might be 23 at the time, 23, 24. Mm-hmm. Never been in a church. I mean, maybe 2 times in my entire life. Yeah. And this was a church called New Oaks, Washington, Iowa. And I remember going in this, I'm by myself, by the way. I'm not with my wife. I'm sitting in the pews or whatever, and I see her up there, and they start talking a little bit. One of my first experiences with the Holy Spirit, goosebumps. I'm crying. I have no idea why I'm crying because I don't know what a baptism is. Yeah. I don't know the symbolism or the significance of it. They dunk her. She comes up. She's crying. My friend's crying. The whole church is crying. I'm crying. I don't even know why I'm crying. There was something about it that just grabbed a hold of my heart like this. Mm-hmm. I got goosebumps. I was so overwhelmed with this emotion that when it's all over with, they're starting to sing. I'm sitting in the pew and we're standing up and they start singing Amazing Grace. I'm like, oh my God, I love this song. I love this song. And somebody's like, well, sing. And I'm like, okay. So I walked to the front of the church. I got on stage. I grabbed a microphone And I started singing. I had no idea there was a such thing as a church choir or worship team. I'm used to karaoke. Okay. Yeah. You know, a couple years before this, I was doing some karaoke stuff with a talent scout. Like all my mind was about singing.
Yeah.
One time in this church, never been to a church. I didn't know how it worked. So I got on stage and I started singing. I was truly filled with the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. Nobody said anything to me either. Nobody grabbed me off the stage. Nobody corrected me or reprimanded me. It was just this amazing place. I remember going home telling my wife, we've got to go to this. We have to go to this. And so we went. Wow. And we went back again and again. I got baptized. My wife got baptized. In December 2nd, 2001, we both got baptized. Wow. I had accepted Christ earlier after I went to massage therapy school in 2001. And after I got back after 9/11, within a month after 9/11, I had accepted Christ on my knees in my shower. Just these little tiny people that were a very important place in my life. Yeah. Knowing without this stage, I would have never gotten to here, and I would have never gotten to here, and I would have never met my wife. If I would have went to the military, I wouldn't be married to her right now. Yeah. All these things that I know now as a man and as a Christian, as a man of faith and as a coach, as a mentor myself, those are all learning lessons for me to forgive my stepfather. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how far into our marriage we were. I think we had both of our boys at the time. I can't remember. I remember a woman reaching out to me, asking me to come and see my stepfather, my second father. Yeah. The one who used to beat my brother and I. And I said, no, not a chance. He's dying. Good. I'm glad. I prayed for that multiple times. I had multiple dreams of me beating his face in. That was the anger that I had. Mm-hmm. And she just kept loving me. And I have no idea who this woman is. It ended up being his boss. Yeah, his employer. You got to come. He's a different man. He's changed. He leads our worship team with his guitar, and he sings, and he's got this little apartment, and he talks about you boys all the time. Yeah. Did he tell you how he beat us? Yes, he did. Yeah, he talked to it. He's shameful about all that stuff. So she ended up talking me into coming down to the hospital. I remember walking in that hospital, and so stupid. Oh, I'm crying. I remember walking in that hospital feeling so much anger, so much hate. I felt everything the moment I walked in, and I laid eyes on him, and I saw him helpless in that bed. Okay, I knew I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore. I had started a fight by then. Another thing in my life I started to do. I started MMA fighting by then. So it was at least 2005, 2006. I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore. But when I walked in and I saw him laying there weak, I wasn't afraid. And he looks at me and he said, "Hey, Nate, I hate that." My stepdad would call me Nate. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Hey, Nate." I wasn't mad at all. I literally listened to him. And I could see everything change in his eyes. And he started to apologize. I'd already forgiven him. I didn't even know. I never knew what that was. I mean, we can go through the steps of being a Christian and going to church and praying and doing tithe and taking communion, but when you forgive someone in your life that doesn't deserve it, when you forgive someone like that, because you know that's what God did to you, it changes your whole life. And I felt nothing. It was over. I had no anger. I had no hate. I had nothing. It was, I don't know how to explain it. And I walked out of there, a changed man. Remember going back to his funeral, and she took me to see his apartment, and I felt sorry for him. Really, that's all I could feel. I just felt sorry for him. I felt bad that he never had a relationship with me because so much anger and hatred, and because I had my mother placing so much anger and hatred inside of me, making me fuel that even more. Oh, you're right. I shouldn't talk to him. It's amazing how mothers can manipulate us, or how fathers can manipulate us, or broken homes. And that's what I had to deal with. And that's what I see with these kids all the time. They have no idea. Just love them. And then let them go to their other father. Love them. Let them go to their stepmom and let them love them. You love them different. And I just had anger and hate built up. The forgiveness happened. It changed my life. I was fighting in Davenport, Iowa. It was my pro debut. And I win. I go outside. And a buddy of mine, he was kind of my spiritual friend at the time. He would pray for me. He knew nothing about MMA, nothing. He was a wuss, but he prayed for me in my corner. All he was my prayer man. He pulled me outside. He said, I got to talk to you. I just want you to know David died. I cried. And, I don't know if he stuck around until my fight, or I don't know if it was finally, this is now I can move on and become myself again. But I'm telling you, that was one of the biggest moments of my life that I always try and share with everybody, because they don't understand how powerful that forgiveness is, because they hang on to it so bad, because you don't know what he said, and you don't know what he did, and you don't know how he made me feel, and you don't know what I went through, and I'm a victim, and cry for me, and wah. And I was there for years, and I blamed everybody. I blamed my wife. I blamed my kids. I blamed my boss, all 40 of them. I blamed my friends. I blamed everything. When I went to jail, everything was because you don't know. You don't understand. You haven't lived in my, do you know what my mom did? So that was the biggest change moment in my life. And from there, I was able to pass that on to my boys. I've never understood grace and mercy. Never understood it. And that changed me as a man. That completely changed me as a man. That changed me as a husband, and it changed me as a father. And that was one of the biggest life lessons that I had. And that's my focus, is to make sure I give that to not just my sons, but that was to every son I ever came in contact with ever since, and still to this day.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for sharing that with us. I know it wasn't easy. It started when you're getting emotional, it started bringing up feelings inside myself as well. Yesterday was the first time I had a conversation with my father. And yesterday was the first time I've ever heard him say, I'm proud of you and I love you. Yeah. And believe me, it was hard, bro. This is a man who I've only seen cry 3 times. Once is when my grandfather died. Once is when my brother died. And then yesterday. And bro, let me tell you, dude, we were both bawling. But I could empathize with what you're saying, because as soon as you hear as soon as you hear them say, I love you and I forgive you, it's like this weight that comes off your shoulders, and I was able to tell him, Dad, I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud you're my dad. I forgive you. And man, it was just like you said, just this weight that comes off, and it's almost like now I can move forward. Now I can move on to the next level in my life.
You're right. And that just happened yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Amazing timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like you, I grew up, I only had one father, and I grew up, just rough. I mean, my dad, was a tough man. I mean, rough, and abusive, everything. And in order for me to start forgiving him, I had to empathize, and empathize means putting yourself in their shoes. And I started having to find out his history and what he went through. You know, his brothers were, and his sisters were blue-eyed, right? My dad had green eyes. So his father said, "You're not my kid." And I mean, even though he looked exactly like his father, he told him, "You're not my kid." You know, so he grew up that was his identity, not knowing, thinking in the back of his head as a little boy that, man, this man doesn't want me. This man doesn't love me, you know? And then he had to, you know, his dad left the house, right? One of the last straws was he had beaten up his little sister and broke her arm. And that was the last straw. So the mom threw him out of the house. And so my dad was living there, and he got used to seeing his mom bringing in all kinds of men. And this was a little tiny house. You know what I'm saying? They shared the same room. So he didn't like that. And that was the last straw. He left. He was on the streets when he was 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
And then he wound up meeting my mom and 17 and getting her knocked up at 17 with twins. So he had to become a man. You know, so he had to take on this responsibility to be a man. That's when Vietnam was going on and stuff like that. So
wow,
he had to take this responsibility to raise these two twin girls and take a full-time job and work several jobs actually, and do the right thing by them and his family. But at the same token, he hadn't dealt with those emotions himself. So when times got tough, the pressure came, the squeeze came, he went back to what he knew, which was the abuse, the anger, the rage. You know, that's why it's so important is for us as fathers to be able to deal with this trauma, even though it hurts. You know, I had a past guest on here, Coach Victor Robledo, who said that anxiety is a good thing, because anxiety is like a warning light on a car. It's telling us that, hey, it's time for you to deal with these issues, right? You know, so it's good to see guys like you and I be able to deal with these emotions. You know what I mean? I just launched a podcast today on emotional intelligence, and that's the number one thing, you know, being able to get in touch with your emotional side and being able to say, hey, man, I'm not okay, but I'm going to deal with this, and having that courage to do that. And I think more men like you, myself, and other men out there who are able to deal with these issues, the world's going to turn out to be a better place, and then teach our sons how to deal with these issues as well.
So I was a part of a group in Las Vegas, and to take men through this event. And that was like 4 years ago. And I realized, you know, this has been on my heart for years to, you know, to do something like this. Of course, I became a pro fighter. After that, I started promoting so many MMA shows. I became a world champion. I was a black belt, but got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. But I'll tell you, running a school and teaching kids that are 4 years old up to 44 years old, doesn't matter the age, I know what they need. And so, and back in 2012, I got my certification through John Maxwell, and I became a John Maxwell coach and speaker. And I started doing motivational events. And I ended up going to UCF, and I put on my very first ever 3-day weekend in UCF for a female softball team. And the lessons I took from that event, I realized that I need to pack them up and give them to a bunch of men. These men need what I'm about to give. And I know it's because they don't have this stuff themselves. They don't have the tools like we talked about. So this, in September, coming up in 8 weeks, I'm actually hosting a men's event, leadership event in my academy. And it is going to be a culmination of everything that I've done, everywhere I've been, everywhere I've coached, the team building, the teamwork, the trauma, breaking those down to the hurts and the hangups of these men, getting into their heart, finding out who they are, what they are, where they're coming short, figuring out what is holding them back, that big lie. My big lie turned into my biggest champion. My big lie was in my head, and what I was told: you're a jack of all trades, master of none. That completely paralyzed me, And I realized who I was just over the years, and still recently figuring out that I'm different. I just 47 years old. I just realized I have ADHD. I didn't know how I compute things different. I thought I had a superpower. I thought I was just different than everybody. The reason why I do what I do. I realized it's my brain. I do things because I can't sit at that desk for 20 years doing the same thing in and out. I have to follow my heart, because if I don't, I will die. And everything I've ever done in my life has always been about following that passion and that drive that God has given me. And that's what these events are, is helping these men go after it. Well, while I was fighting, I had a massage therapy business. I had 3 martial arts schools, and I had a fitness center that I was running, a 24-hour gym. And that's when this woman, she's an editor of a newspaper. She said, "You're a jack of all trades, master of none." Man. And then people are like, "Oh, what job do you have now? Oh, now what are you doing?" I remember my sister says to me, my half sister says to me, "Well, I hope this makes you," the emphasis was on this after I got certified with John Maxwell. "I hope this makes you happy." I can't tell you the narrow-minded people that I have met that are okay being in their own prison, try to bring me into their prison. Now, listen, if you're okay doing that, if you don't want to go after your life, fine. But I know there's people like me that are hungry. They need someone in their life. I felt like I've been waiting for someone to discover me my whole life. Those are the words that resonated with me. Look at me. I have a gift. Now I know what that gift is. And the more that I bring it out, the more that God shines its light on me and that gift, more people change around me. So who am I to hide this, to snuff this from anyone? I've got to bring it out. So that's what this event is. So, there's another part of that. Jack of all trades. I didn't know this until last year. Jack of all trades, master of none is better than being a master of one. Thank you. Yes. Yes. And it was unbelievably impactful to me to be able to see this as not as a weakness, not that I'm doing something now. Oh, there's another, I have 7 books that I'm reading because I can't finish just one. I have to read 7 books. That's just who I am. And I embrace it. Okay, I'm different. But what it does for me is it allows me to have this thought over here and this thought over here and this thought over here. It allows me to be that man in my facility, loving and caring for and changing and mentoring and coaching guys in this school that need a dad, that don't have one, that need a father figure, that need just a coach, that need someone to love them and still be hard on them and still hold them accountable. And I know every one of these guys' personalities in here. When it comes to my kids, brother, if there can be any other opposite, it's my 2 boys. Completely opposite. Is it loud? My kids are starting to come in.
No, we're good. No, we're good.
Okay. So, you were bragging about when we started the podcast about my boys, and that sounds great. That's amazing. As a dad, I'm like, oh, those are my boys. My son is the number 1 lightweight ranked athlete in the nation. Number one. Look him up on Tapology. Number 1. He's making his pro debut in 10 days on LFA, on UFC Fight Pass for LFA. His world is about to change. And it's all because of his gift. He has an unbelievable gift with MMA. It's beyond what I can do. My son, I'm marrying him on Labor Day. They got married over Zoom the moment they graduated college, and but they want to have a full wedding. So I get to marry my son in 8 weeks in Florida. 5 weeks in Florida. And he's an officer in the Navy, and he's in pilot school. Wow. See, here's the cool thing that I feel, and I want to talk to dads. It was not easy because I had to balance being a dad, being the husband, being a business owner, being a coach to 1,000 people, and also being their coach. And I tell all these dads that want to coach their kids, back off, stop. You will ruin the relationship if you are not a whole person. You will ruin your relationship for the rest of their life. You know what your dad said to you yesterday? That is all these kids want to hear.
Yep.
I tell them all the time, I kicked the dad out of here. I said, you need to leave, get outside, go out and watch, because your kid is triggered with you standing here over him, and he's never going to be good enough in your eyes. You need to go outside so we can train. Told another dad to sit down. I told a mom to get off the bench. She's a helicopter mom. Nobody is parenting the parents right now. And you know what these kids want? I'll tell you. So whoever's listening, write these down. Good job. Not, why didn't you do that? Why are you doing this? Why didn't you do enough? Pay attention. Focus. The coach is a coach for a reason. I'm proud of you. I love watching you train. That's it. Those are 3 things. Man, you did amazing today. How was it? You don't give any feedback because you're not the coach. You're not a pro fighter. You have no idea how to get off your back. You don't know how to do a defended guillotine and a Von Flue choke. Let me do my job. My boys, they got both sides of that. They've got coach here and they got dad at home. And I was still, homework. Is it done? Focus. Where's your priorities? You need a job. You have to pay bills because I'm not covering for you. You have to find some responsibilities for your own, on your own. The biggest lesson that I ever had with my boys was giving them the idea that they all have a gift. I believe that we all have a superhero inside of us. Well, I know the people at home can't see, but you can't see, I have the blur on. I'm upstairs in my academy. The entire wall is filled with Marvel and DC comic superheroes. Pictures and portraits of everyone. We all have that superhero inside of us with this special gift, unique only to you. You have it, and it's up to you to decide what that is. If everybody would tap into whatever their unique God gave them, that gift, without squandering, all I've ever told my boys was this: don't squander your gift. If you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor there is. If you're going to be the garbage man, I want to see a Goalcast video made. I want it on TV. I want to see Oprah Winfrey do a story on you because you were the best birthday party attendant at the trampoline park. I don't care what you do. Do it with all your heart. Do it with all your might. And because you're the best at it. And that will give you all the pleasure and joy in the world. Instead of chasing a job, chasing a title, chasing money, chasing that fame. Follow what God has given you. Bring that up to the light. Don't squander it. Those are what I told my boys. And here I fought. I was a fighter. I was a pro. I have one fight on YouTube because I've never posted my stuff. And I was never going to be like what Ashton is. And here he is going on LFA, his debut. I wanted to go to the military and I couldn't because of the actions that I took. And here my son is an officer in the Navy. My boys are the best of me. Man, I love my boys. All I can say is this: no matter how successful I get, no matter what I do, how big, whatever my name is, if my wife is miserable, I failed. If I'm not a good man or husband to my wife, I failed. If my kids aren't successful, not because of money or fame, but if they aren't happy and successful in their lives, marriage, and career, I failed. I have one job, and the litmus test to decide if I'm successful or not is my family. That's what it is. It's my job. The moment I said this before, the moment I said I do to my wife, and the moment my boys took their very first breath, it was my job to create them and to be men. And that's what we're missing today, is just great men.
No, and I agree with you 100%, Nathan. We're missing those role models. I thought that was awesome that you said that as a father, if you're not a coach, if you're not whole and complete, you're just going to cause more damage. We see that so much at soccer games and everything. I remember one time, because I was a really good wrestler. I've been wrestling my whole entire life. I went to Kenny Monday's camp. I went to California with Kendall Cross. We went all over the place, right? And,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember seeing is I wrestled this guy who was a 5-time state champion. This guy was just unbelievable, right? And he smoked me. I mean, there was nothing I can do. You've probably been in those positions where the guy's just that good. And I remember he beat.
No, that's me. That's me, brother. That's what they say they come in there.
Well, this guy smoked me, right? And I went outside and I was changing my singlets, and because I had scored a point on him, his dad was his coach. His dad had him outside by the neck up against the wall, socking him in the stomach.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I looked, they both made eye contact with me, dude. And I didn't know what to do. You know what? I was like, oh crap. You know, I walked into something. So I turned around, I went back inside, but that always stuck with me because later on in life, this guy who is super successful, this guy who got a full ride scholarship to, you know, this whatever school he went to, he squandered that. When he got to college, all he wanted to do, because he had got out of that. Yeah, exactly. All he wanted to do was party because he got out of that environment, and he wasted that.
Yep.
He didn't wrestle at all. He gained like 70 pounds. He was miserable.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see it every single day. I can't even tell you the weight of regret that these men carry when they walk in here at 20 years old or 30 years old. That weight of regret, that is something that will carry with them for the rest of their life. I mean, if they could take stock of it right now, it's just hard to step back and take a look at yourself. You know, you will never be able to look at yourself in the face with your own eyeballs, except through a picture or a mirror. You will never be able to really check yourself from the neck up, a checkup from the neck up. But if you could just give yourself I'm about to do evaluations with my coaches in here. If you can honestly evaluate yourself and start writing down the most important things in your life, you know, I don't know if you've ever done a wheel before of where you are in your health, marriage, finances, sex in your marriage, not just a marriage relationship, fatherhood, and your work, you know, what you are. If you can do that from 0 to 10, where are you? You'll see somebody's a 10 over here, but most of the time they're a 2 and 3 in all these other areas. They can't function high at a work and be home with their wife and function at home. They turn off at home. These men are not present. These men can't be a 10 with their kids because they're so much a 10 in their own private lives. They're still going out, or they're still worried about the gym or golf or the buddies or the garage. The balance that these men need is what nobody talks about. And these dads that we have right now, I tell them all the time, just please listen to me. If you could listen to me one time, just encourage your kid. I know we got to go. I want to say one last thing. I don't know where you want to go with this, but this has popped in my head 3 times since I've been talking. So I need to say this because I know I've had this conversation multiple times, and it's affected me just recently in my own kids' life. Your kids are not the same. They're not the same as you were. They don't have the same life you had. They don't have the same joy that we had growing up. No, they're not going to come home when the street light comes on. And no, they're not going to go outside and play in the garden hose. We just have to deal with it. It isn't a generational thing. It is a business economical thing, because this is what we've done. We provided because we want our kids to have what we didn't have. Well, good job, mom and dad. You just gave your kid a lazy life. Even then, I want to say your kids are not the same. Your oldest is not the same as your youngest. I can't tell you the polar opposites my boys are. My oldest is so driven, so structured, almost to the point of OCD. He's organized, he's clean. He cleans his house, not his wife. He's the one who's driven. He's the one who goes after these things. He's the one who preps 6 months in advance. My other son is going to be like me. It's Kirby time. It's 2-ish, 3-ish, maybe. I don't know. Oh, what's that? Squirrel. He's just like me. It's whenever the wind blows, wherever it is, however, it's whatever, man. But he's the one who's got a different gift. If we can focus on our kids and train them, treat them, love them differently because of who they are differently, we will have a better relationship with them. I can't judge Colton like I can Ashton. The reason why I say this is I played football in high school. Actually, you know, so many of the stories get out of my life, but I went on and played semi-pro football.
Wow.
And my son is about to be a freshman in high school. And I said, hey, man, we got to get you to the school. Football is going to start. We got summer practices, bro. We got monkey rolls and 2-a-days. And he says, I'm not playing football. Excuse me? Say it again, a little louder for the guys in the back. I'm not playing football. Yes, you are. Dude, I'm not playing football. Ashton, we're Kirbys. We play football. This is what we do. I don't want to play football. Ashton, you need an after-school sport. I've got one. I know, because he does MMA and jiu-jitsu. But you need the teamwork. I've got a team. It's the 2-a-days. Dad, I trained this morning and I trained last night. We're doing 2-a-days. We do monkey rolls in there, Ashton. We do monkey rolls in the gym. And it was at that moment I stopped dictating what my son was going to do. I will still coach him. I will still train him, because train up the child the way he must go. One day he won't depart from it. I will never stop instilling those values in my kid. But what I'm not going to do is tell him what I think is best for him. I'm not going to live my life through him. It's his life he has to lead, and I'm going to lead him to make the best choices he can to make his life the best he can.
Amen, brother. And that's all we can do as fathers, is be that mentor and that guide to help them make those decisions, because they're going to make the decisions no matter what. All we can do is just
whether you like it or not,
you know what I mean? And just guide them and, you know, put them in the hands of the Lord. You know, I put a post the other day about how kids' decisions and stuff like that. And one of the biggest things that I've talked to fathers that they do is just pray, give it to God, pray, let her know that they did the best they possibly can. And that's it. But once again, Nathan, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with us and my audience, brother. I appreciate you. You guys are awesome. I look forward to seeing your son. I know he's going to do an amazing job. You raised hell of a job raising 2 children and young men now. And that's awesome, brother. And can you tell our audience, if they want to get a hold of you, how they can get a hold of you and reach out to you if they have questions, brother?
No, I appreciate that. A lot of people will, I have guys asking me about this event, has been planned for a while. It's going to be in Little Rock. I'm based out of Little Rock, as my school is. But Kirby MMA at gmail.com is the best way to email me. But I'm on Facebook, Kirby MMA. Instagram is Kirby MMA or Rock City MMA. We've got guys fighting in Bellator and PFL or LFA, like I said, is coming up. I got pro boxers, so they can watch my guys and just tune in to see these men develop. But getting a hold of me other than through my phone and text message, the best way is going to be through Facebook or email for sure. And I try and reach out to every single person who contacts me regardless.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, thank you, brother. And take care and God bless you.
Yes, sir. God bless. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.